Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make a gravity-dyed Hemostat Mandala. I'm only going to put the mandala on the front portion of the t-shirt. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to isolate the front of the shirt. And to do that, I need to find the center of the bottom portion of the t-shirt and the center of the top portion of the t-shirt and make a mark right in the center. I'm making a mark at the center of the top and a mark at the center of the bottom. Then to isolate the front of the shirt, I'm going to grab hold of the mark at the bottom and the mark at the top and lift the shirt up off of the table and give it kind of a shake. That's going to cause the back layer of fabric, or the back of the shirt, to fall down below where I only have a hold of the very front of the shirt. When I lay the shirt down, the shirt is folded in half where I have a seam going right down the middle of the front of the shirt. The fabric that you see at the top of the screen is the back of the shirt and the sleeves of the shirt. I'm going to smooth out the wrinkles, and then I'm going to use my washable marker to make a mark where I'd like for the center of my mandala to be. I normally like my centers to be pretty close to level with the armpits of the shirt. Maybe just a little bit lower, but if you go too low, like in the center of the shirt, then your design is really more on your stomach than up on your chest portion. To fold the mandala, I'm going to fold the hem of the shirt up to the mark that I made, and the top of the shirt down to the mark that I made. This fold starts out kind of like you're folding a paper airplane. I'm going to stick a straight edge underneath the shirt, and where both of those folds come together, I'm going to lift the straight edge up to make a nice, clean, hopefully wrinkle-free seam. Then I'm going to pull the straight edge out and straighten up my shirt just a little bit. Placing the mandala only on the front portion of the shirt makes it a little bit more awkward because I have all the excess fabric, which I have to maneuver in order to make my folds. I'm going to move the shirt around as I make my folds, but each time I fold my shirt, I'm folding to the same side. So one side of my mandala fold is going to have a whole bunch of different seams, and the other side is only going to have two. Hopefully that makes sense. When you get in the middle of folding it, I think you'll realize what I'm talking about. So at this point, we folded an 8-point mandala. If you wanted a 16-point mandala, you would just make another fold like we just did on either side of the shirt. I'm going to stop here though for my hemostat mandala. I'm going to straighten my folds, and then I'm going to use a washable marker and make a mark where the neck of the shirt is. Since the neck of the shirt is down inside of the fabric folds, I want to make sure when I'm applying my hemostats that I don't take them too far into the neck of the shirt. For this shirt, I'm using mainly 10 and 12-inch hemostats, and I've coated my hemostats with heat shrink tubing. I place heat shrink tubing over the teeth of the hemostats and then use a heat gun to shrink it down to fit. I purchased the heat shrink tubing on the electrical aisle, and I've bought some either at Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm also going to use my straight hemostats for this design, and I'm starting by placing one hemostat at the very end or the center of the mandala at an angle. And then a viewer gave me a really great tip to keep the hemostats from popping off. They said that they wrap rubber bands around the handles of the hemostats. So I started doing that for some of these designs, and it works great. Because the hemostats are so tight on the fabric, sometimes they will pop, and if they pop, they can fly quite a ways across the room. And because they are pointed, that can be dangerous. So you need to watch, like if you have small children or curious pets, that they don't get injured on these hemostats. Now from here on, I'm going to alternate placing hemostats on each side of the shirt. And I'm going to place them at an angle, and I'm going to take the end of the new hemostat that I'm applying and apply it right up next to the other hemostat, kind of forming a V on the shirt at least on the side of the shirt. This part you can do kind of however you want to. I mean, if you want to place your hemostat all the way to the other edge of the fabric, you can. If you want to only apply it part way, you can. It's a personal preference thing. I do it differently all the time. I think it's fun to just kind of mix it up and see what happens. You can also use curved hemostats for this as well. You know, there are really no tie-dye rules. I mean, there are a few, but for the most part, you can do whatever you want and see how your shirt ends up looking. That's one of the fun things about tie-dye is you can truly make it your own and you can make your shirt very unique. Okay, so I'm only going to add one more hemostat because I'm getting really close to that line that I made showing where the neck of my shirt is. And now I'm going to go back and add all of the rubber bands to the handles of the hemostats. Once I'm finished, I'm going to place the shirt aside and allow it to dry out completely. I get better color saturation on thick folds like this when I dye them when they're completely dry. If you'd like a little bit more information about this topic, I have a blog post out on my website that discusses this in more detail, and I have a link to my website down below this video in the description. I'm going to do the gravity dye process outside, and so for my setup, I've placed my shirt on a metal shelving unit, which I have placed outside underneath the trees, and I have the mandala portion on top of the shelf, and I have the gravity dyed portion hanging over the edge. Then because the shirt is completely dry, I'm going to lightly spray it with a little bit of soda ash solution to help the dye stick better to the top of the shirt. I like to make my mandalas look like they have a little bit of dimension. So to do that, I'm going to take blueberry from Pro Chemical and Dye, and I'm going to put it on one side right up next to the hemostats. I'm trying not to put a whole lot of the blueberry up next to the hemostat, but it's a little bit difficult because it's kind of windy outside today. In the top row of sections formed by the hemostats, I'm going to place some blue colors, and I'm going to use some more grade blues. They're not quite as vibrant and vivid as like a royal blue. Then in the lower sections, I'm going to place some peach type colors. I really should have reversed the order that I applied the colors in. I should have applied my peach type colors before I applied my blues because as you can see, the wind hit that blue color and made it kind of go over into my peach sections. So in the first and third section, I added azure blue from Dharma Trading Company. And then in that middle section, I applied Wedgwood blue. And then I placed quite a bit of Wedgwood blue just outside of my hemostats. That's the color that I want to streak down the shirt. For my peachy type colors, right at the very end, I'm using Rosebud from Pro Chemical and Dye. And I'm really struggling to keep the rosebud on top of this portion of fabric. It's a small area and the texture of the rosebud is kind of more like powdered sugar, so it doesn't really want to stay on there very well. Then in the middle portion, I'm using watermelon from Pro Chemical, and in the last area, I'm going to use Himalayan salt from Dharma Trading Company. That was a special spring muck dye color, so it's probably no longer available, but you can just substitute some other peachy color which you have. Then over the top of the dye, I'm going to apply a little bit more dry soda ash and add on some large chunks of ice. I've made these in either food prep or Cool Whip containers. It's really hot out here today, so it didn't take too long for the large chunks of ice to melt. And after these melted, I came back and added a couple more larger chunks of ice because I did still have some undissolved dye on top. By the time the second layer melted, the dye was all the way to the end of the shirt, and I went ahead and took the shirt, placed it inside of a plastic tub or tote that had a metal rack down in the bottom, and put the lid on the tote and went ahead and left it outside. Because it is as hot as it is here, if I just leave it hanging on my shelf, I either need to spray it with soda ash solution periodically or the shirt's going to dry out. So after I put it in the tote, I left it for probably about 24 hours before I rinsed it. So to rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then I took the hemostats off of the shirt and warmed the water up to hot and continued rinsing in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of rinsing for a long time, I soaked the shirt by placing some really hot water in my utility sink, adding a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, and just allowing the shirt to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out and I continued that soaking process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I put the shirt along with some Dharma's professional textile detergent into my washing machine and I washed it using a hot water cycle. Okay, so I've washed, dried, and ironed the shirt and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one turned out really pretty. I really like the peachy colors mixed with those more grayed out blues. Like I was mentioning when I applied the dye, if I would have added my peachy colors first, I wouldn't have some of that kind of muddy peach up at the top of the shirt. That happened because that blue blew over into that area and bonded with the fabric before the peach had an opportunity to. I wasn't thinking about it, I was just applying dye. So really what I should have done since I was doing this outside is added my lighter color first and then added my darker color. But you live and learn. But honestly, I don't think it looks bad. And I do think adding the blueberry on the side of the hemostats does make this mandala kind of look three-dimensional, which I think is a cool effect. That's also where I'm getting some of that purple split that you see right on the outside portion of the mandala. Then of course, I love the dye movement on this shirt. I love how it's streaking down this shirt, and I like the little design that's made on the back. I think it looks cool. It almost looks like a little, I don't know, flower or a little plant of some kind right up in between the shoulder blades. I just love the flow of the dye on gravity dyes. I think it looks really cool. So overall, I love this one. I think it looks really pretty. Love the colors together. But what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.